Well, it's 7 o'clock in Southern California, or about 30 seconds thereafter in Southern California, and that means it's time for the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable for October 12th, 2017. This is Mike, N6HKH, your net control. This roundtable is held every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 0200 UTC, on XRF 002 Alpha and a constellation of X reflectors, including XRF 310A, XRF 555 Alpha, and our new dual mode reflector XLX 313 Alpha. This is a technical net dedicated to D-Star and Open Digital Systems. It's a group effort, so to join the discussion, start a topic, or ask a question, please key up when I call for stations. But please also remember to not quick key or tailgate. I will pause regularly to let you key up, and I ask that participating stations do the same. We don't take formal check-ins or do a roll call to give us more time to talk D-Star and digital. Now, Net Control is online at roundtable.tech. That's roundtable, all one word, .tech. If you put that in the address field of your favorite browser, it'll take you right to our D-Star Roundtable forum board, where you can find a real-time chat feature called the Shoutbox that you can use to contact me as well as to post information relevant to the topic at hand, especially links and quick notes. We ask that stations offering a web address, in conjunction with their presentation, to post that URL or DNS in the Shoutbox so that those listening now or later can link to the website or document location. Just remember that we have a group of people that participate live and those that listen by recording later on, and so being able to go back to the Shoutbox and check out what it is that we're talking about, pointing to, or otherwise demonstrating as a result of a link or statement there, can enjoy it as well and take a look at it later on. So Roundtable, all one word, .tech. At the close of tonight's Roundtable, the Shoutbox is moved to the Shoutbox history above the General Roundtable discussion board. There you can find it anytime you like, and of course the podcast listeners get the Shoutbox downloaded automatically. So first up tonight are announcements, and I use plural announcements because I always, pretend that we're going to get several stations keying up with announcements of a general nature concerning their repeater system, hamventions, conventions, things that are happening, information that we need to know. And we'll take stations with announcements now. So please key up. Well, as usual, nobody keys up right away. I've got a couple of ones. First, don't forget the Pacific Division Convention in San Ramon coming up the weekend of October 20 through 22. It's known as Pacific Con. It's well attended from across the U.S. and also from other countries. It's a big event. It's a big, official ARRL convention. So keep your mind on that. If you plan to go, you better make your reservations now or plan on sleeping in your car. Also, that same weekend, a lot going on that weekend, is the Scouts Jamboree, or it's called the Scoutings Jamboree on the Air, JOTA, sometimes JOTI, which is Jamboree on the Internet, but I don't know that we're going to worry too much about that. The important point there is that D-Star is a part of the Scouts Jamboree on the Air, and the ARRL website has frequencies for both D-Star, DMR Mark, and the DMR Brandmeister, including the traditional HF and some other digital modes that the Scouts may use, along with simplex frequencies. For example, in D-Star, REF 033A has been allocated as the full-time radio scouting D-Star reflector. Very cool. And there's several simplex frequencies that can be used if you're close enough. In fact, what I'm missing is where exactly it is. It's, well, I guess it's across several locations. In any event, very cool for reflector 033 alpha. And you can go to a link that I put up in the shout box that takes you to a list of the frequencies. And if you're interested in seeing where you should be or where you might be able to find the scouting jamboree on the air and give contacts, listen in, or just see what it is that they're up to if you haven't listened to that sort of stuff in the past. It's always something fun to do, and hey, it involves D-Star as well. So there are my announcements. Let's hope that maybe you might have dug up some of your own stations. Please key up.
Kilo 6, Whiskey Tango Juliet, comment.
KK6 WTJ. Welcome with your comment. Go right ahead.
Yeah, be advised on that Pacificon. I don't know if San Ramon would be accurate. They're usually in Pleasanton, California. I live dang near close to that place. Pretty sure it's in Pleasanton.
Okay, well, it sounds good to me. Just officially, it's listed. In fact, I just checked the ARRLE newsletter and also went to the website, and they listed as San Ramon, and the hotel is the San Ramon Marriott. Now, I don't know if Pleasanton is like next door or if the actual event is held somewhere other than the San Ramon Marriott, but it's fine with me. The closer to you, I'm sure it's better, but it's officially San Ramon. So how far away is Pleasanton from San Ramon? Go ahead.
Well, you might be correct in it's up the Marriott there. I know that Pacificon's been over at the Pleasanton Fairgrounds, which is approximately, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half away from San Ramon. But if it's at the Marriott, that makes sense.
Well, maybe you should scurry on down there and tell them that Pleasanton is a far better location for it. Yeah, the other concern is that I'm hoping that San Ramon is not involved in those horrible Northern California fires, and getting to the event is not going to be obstructed by them. But I'm not familiar with San Ramon vis-a-vis the fire that's going on. I was reading that there's apparently a NFL game that may not be able to be held in Northern California. I think it's the Chargers Raiders game, and it may be held in San Diego. Plus, the smoke is really terrible there. So, all right, appreciate it. Stations with announcements. Go ahead. Key up now.
KC8YQL.
And there's Mr. Announcement himself, KC8YQL. Bill, thanks for joining us. Well, welcome. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mike. And all on the net. Yeah, I was over on the Arkansas DMR Talk Group 3105, and Denny runs that net over there, and he runs a pretty neat net on the DMR. Said he has been in contact with Norbert from Open Spot, and he's going to try to have him on as a guest speaker. So that net will be on eventually probably on 3105 on DMR. And I believe he starts around it's 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock Thursday night. I'll have to check on the time for you guys. And I did make an announcement about your net being held here, and they was all wanting to know how they could get in to this net without having D-Star capability. So I was kind of at a dilemma to tell them other than the website. They mentioned the website. I told them you got the shout box. So you may have new folks tuning in on the website. You may have some new folks ask questions on their shout box there tonight as well. I believe Denny does have an open spot. He made a comment just a little bit ago. He's going to switch it over to D-Star, so hopefully he can get in here and check in and tell you a little more about his net with Norbert from open spot. That'd be pretty interesting to get him on the air and ask him why he gives us all those firmware updates. Well, not really. We know why he does, right? To make the product better. Anyway, all we got for now there, Mike. We'll turn it back to you. You just might have some new folks join you tonight. Hopefully we can drum up some more business for you folks. And tell me, how long ago, do you happen to know, Mike, how long ago it was when you switched to X Reflector 2A? I should remember that, but I'm pulling a total blank on that. When did you come off of REF 12 and switch to X2A? Back to you, sir. KC8YQL.
Well, it's been about 2 years ago. I don't have the date on the top of my head, and I'm open to those that keep track of such things. But it's been close to 2 years. And Bill, I know you're a friend of the net, but why would you announce a competing net that starts in the middle of this net somewhere else to talk about OpenSpot? I understand the nature of nets, and I'm glad to help other nets get going, but not particularly on Thursday nights. Did I hear you right that you want everybody to go over to another net at 8 p.m.? I don't think that's what you meant, but I'll let you clarify it.
I mean that in a nice way, you know I do, not in a bad way. There's 3 hours difference between your time and my time, right? Yeah, so their net's over with. They concluded their net about a half an hour ago. So not competing times, total different times. Back to you, KC8YQL.
Oh, I think you were just trying to get me going. You did that on purpose by failing to state that it was 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And, of course, that net would probably be over by now. So with that in mind, I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. And so is that net recorded for those with open spots that might want to listen to Norbert squirm? Go ahead, Bill.
Well, I'm not really 100% sure if Denny records that or not. I don't know if it's archived or not. Hopefully, if he checks in with you tonight, you can ask him or him yourself. And Denny's been bringing quite a few guest speakers to his net, and of course Norbert's going to be probably one of the best ones we hear from. Actually, I'm thinking there, Mike. I don't know if Norbert knows English. I've sent him emails and he responds right back with emails, but talk to the man. I don't know. I assume maybe he does know English language. But boy, what a group. What support, for hardware product. My goodness. He just all the time updating the well, you remember when I first got that hooked it up, I couldn't even check into your net with it. D-Star wasn't even supported. And I think I had to come through what was it? Was it 212? Yeah, I think 212 was the only way to get into the net back then. So, boy, we've come a long way since they came out with that gadget. Anyway, I don't even remember. Did I tell you guys there's a shortage on the components for Jim's boards? You already knew about that, I think. I think the email he shared with me was almost a month away to get components to build out more Zoom boards. Bruce building them for him up in Canada. May not be able to get any of those out for close to a month for people that's even got orders in. A worldwide shortage on the components. So I'm not sure if I mentioned that already or not. Anyway, back to you, sir. KC8YQL.
All right, Bill, appreciate it. Well, you know that we've got a transcoding server, 4K transcoding as we like to call it, that allows DMR users to connect to the roundtable through XLX313 Alpha. And it's on Talk Group 4001, and I'm sure there's somebody be happy to explain it, how to connect with the DMR radio and hotspot, appropriate hotspot, open spot more specifically, although others can be used, so they can participate in the roundtable without having to, try to, I guess for some DMR users, checking around the bottom of their box for a D-Star radio and a HT. So we're connectable, D-Star or DMR. But you know that, don't you? I'll give it back to you one more time, and then we're going to carry on. KC8YQL, go ahead.
Yep, 4001 was mentioned on DMR Plus, so hopefully some of the guys might actually be tuned in over there already. Back to you, Mike. KC8YQL.
Well, you never know, and we appreciate you spreading the good word, Bill. Thanks for being with us. Any other announcements for tonight's roundtable? Please key up.
KK6WTJ with an announcement.
KK6WTJ, go ahead.
It occurred to me here, you mentioned the fires out here, and I'm actually going through San Ramon right now, mobile, and there is an active advisory for the smokes. If anyone has it has an asthma or some kind of emphysema or something like that, it definitely is advising in the area to stay indoors. How about me?
Wow, yeah, that smoke is really a problem. I saw some photos or video from San Francisco that where the smoke has affected them, and it's going to be windy again here at I think tomorrow, if not tonight. It's just going to get worse, according to the experts. And so there is I saw an article about a 3M respirator mask that has a specific designator that will filter out smoke and smoke particulates, and available at a lot of hardware stores. Unfortunately, I forgot the slight N95 or something, but I don't know if that's it. And I'm not certain where I saw it, but I saw it repeatedly as the mask, to where if you're going to be in that kind of smoky environment, boy, I sure feel bad for the guys that have to put up with that. And hopefully they'll be able to get that under control pretty quick. I think they have just about every aircraft that can drop water or borate working those fires, and just miserable. All right, appreciate the update and the heads up. Other announcements? We'll take you now, please, Kip. All right, nothing seen or heard. I just wonder if, the effect upon some of the D-Star repeater sites and other amateur radio operations that have been wiped out by the forest fire. I'm hoping that that's not the case, but there was a pretty significant D-Star system some time ago up north that the fire took it out and was not replaced. And well, there was a story about what it got replaced with, but that's an old story. And so it happens. Anyone have any reports on repeater systems or repeaters that you use to connect to the roundtable? Of course, if they're off the air, you wouldn't be using them, but nevertheless, just curious if anyone knows how the wildfires have impacted D-Star digital operations in Northern California. If you know, please key up. All right, well, nothing seen or heard. I just am concerned for our friends in Northern California that at least listen to the roundtable and connect to it fairly frequently, and hopefully, their systems are in pretty good shape. All right, well, I want to run through some of the Shoutbox posts real quick because there's a few of them that are pretty interesting. Again, at roundtable.tech, and scoot on down to the Shoutbox, and there's a couple of posts that are worthy of mention. The first one up from KG5TNK talks about a clarification to our discussion about OpenSpot with DMR a couple of Thursdays ago, although I think we also kicked that around a bit last Thursday, advising us that if you want to hear the connection announcements, which was one of the questions that came up, talk group 9998 in your digital contacts talk group list, which should be part of your RX group as well, may provide the connection announcements, where if that's true, then if it's part of your RX group in addition to Talk Group 9, you should be able to hear that, assuming that there's no traffic on Talk Group 9. So I thought I'd ask if anyone's put this to use and has any comments about it. I haven't heard about Talk Group 9998 being assigned in that manner, or how that talk group got to be the one that is used in OpenSpot. Of course, it could be because OpenSpot designated it, but perhaps some clarification would be in order. Stations who know, please key up. Well, didn't get a response on that, but the OpenSpot aficionados, there you go. Something to add to your receive group. Also, and next down, KE0LMX was kind enough in listening to the podcast. And of course, the Shoutbox is a great way for those that listen to a recorded version of this net to communicate with those that participate live when you can't be around. But he came up with some ideas about possible nets that may be able to take up some of the space, that is, the modules or on reflectors here on the Kings of Digital system, aka the constellation of reflectors. We've got lots of room, and in chasing down potential use of those unused modules, we asked for interest in nets, with the thought that there's a great enough interest in it, I'll scurry up a net controller and give it a try. But you'll see a list of some of the nets that I hadn't thought about that he thought might be of some interest. Everyone might want to take a look at that. And in light of, I think it's Tim and his posting, I wanted to see if anyone's given any further thought about nets of interest that you would like to have held on the constellation. It does not necessarily, that is, the nets have to be specifically related to what we do here or about amateur radio, although, I suspect that might garner more interest than others. But there are lots of nets that are of, about other hobbies and interests that, would not just be over and done with after an hour of, running down, let's say, a radio, but, it would involve topics that, where people have to give their opinions about equipment or about, the other hobby and what's good or bad about it. And so I thought I'd see if anyone else had any other thoughts, so I can make a list and maybe get something started. Stations, please key up. Well, nothing there. So, if you have some ideas for potential nets, feel free to post them in the shout box or send me an email or get on the air and scream for me until I answer and tell me, hey, this is a net I've been dying to listen to, or here's a net that, I used to listen to and it went away, and I'm sad that it did, and we'll be happy to get something going. It's just, it's a lot of work, and there's no purpose to throwing up nets just for the sake of, topics that I might think of when there's no real interest. So I have to rely upon you guys to help me out with what's interesting and what's not. And some of the non-amateur radio nets that people have brought to my attention are, the usuals, guns, and another is photography, although I guess there's other photography nets, but I don't know, how they worked out or what the interest is. And another suggestion was to talk about food. And, I think most hams like to eat. Most hams like to barbecue. There are even hams that converted their beat-up Weber kettles to antennas so they can talk on the air and barbecue at the same time, hopefully not using the same Weber kettle, but again, the beat-up one. So Those are just some of the ones that came in. And if you think of any of you, feel free to let me know. So we've had a couple other posts here in the shout box about asking for a best reference to NETS activity groups that are available on X Reflectors and DCS, and something similar to the NETS listing on dstarusers.org. And I guess just I'll call for state. Well, let me do that. Is anyone aware of a listing of NETS activities and things that are happening, assumably in the digital modes, particularly DStar, on the usual reflectors that are in addition to what you can find on dstarusers.org? Stations, please key up. Well, again, no response there. I don't know. There have been some attempts to do that. That is, the dstarusers.org is scheduled nets. You have to prove that you actually have a net, and I'm not sure how current it is. We had some difficulty in getting somebody removed our net and then put it back incorrectly, and it took some time to get it updated, and I'm not complaining. It's not my website, and I'm not in charge of the nets, but there's that. But I don't know. I'm sure somebody's got a list of just interesting nets to be checked out, but I don't know where it's at. It could be on social media as well. If anyone stumbles across something like that in response to N5WD's Shoutbox post or chat, really, please feel free to post it so we can all take a look at what's happening, because certainly if somebody suggests a net for the constellation and there's 20 others elsewhere that are struggling to do the same thing, trying to create another one doesn't make a lot of sense. And sometimes, it is difficult to figure out what's going on everywhere on all of the reflectors that are available to DStar, and now in the open source or open system DMR, Open System Fusion. There's a lot going on, and I don't think it would be a tough job to consolidate them all, at least to maintain it, to keep it up to date as from the webmaster standpoint. dstarusers.org relies upon people reporting regularly scheduled nets, and as opposed to searching them out. All right, so let's see if anyone has any comments to last week's discussions. I try to give those a listen to us digitally, that is by recording or podcast or however, and would like to comment on a topic that we talked about last week, much as N5WD posted in response to listening to the podcast last Thursday. But still, I'm encouraging stations that there's no reason why you can't add to a topic heard last week, doing so live here on the roundtable for all of us to benefit with your thinking and to take a topic and carry it on. So anyone with follow-up, we'll take you now, please, Kia. All right, didn't generate anything there. Well, let's just stick with what I usually say. Nobody seen or heard, as opposed to making commentary about what is heard and what isn't. So, anybody have any reports? I was looking for some reports from some of the ham fairs and hamventions that concluded not too long ago, where people attended, and we were getting some reports during the summer, but haven't heard of anybody attending any ham fair, hamvention, convention, whatever, more recently, and news that would be of interest to the digital crowd, the open source, open system digital crowd, to be more specific. And let me check to see if anyone's got anything to contribute after having attended a attending a convention and like to tell us something that we may not know about because we didn't go. Stations, please, Kia.
N5W.
There's N5WD. I guess if I gave your call sign out often enough, you might key up. But I realize you're with us now because you're posting. Anyway, N5WD, go ahead.
Hi, Mike. Everybody else. N5WD in Ponder, Texas. This probably should have gone in announcements, but I was just reminded of it when you mentioned the Hamfest. Those of you who are in north central Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, northern Louisiana, western Arkansas may be interested. Saturday, the main trading company in Tyler is having a open session day. It's a mini Hamfest that they're sponsoring at their store. Lots of different demonstrations, lots of different talks. DMR, D-Star are going to figure prominently. They have a very good selection of various radios and or accessories that are applicable to the DMR, D-Star Fusion crowd, including open slots and DB Megas and things like that. And my understanding is the prices are going to be extremely good. I talked with KE5, can't remember his call sign now. Anyway, last night, one of the organizers of one branch of the programs. And it sounds like they're going to do some mix in between beginners and some advanced stuff. ICOM will be there. Apparently, they've got a couple of people talking about the future of D-Star with ICOM, so that might be interesting to find out. Anyway, if anybody is in the area and wants to drop by, it's a main trading company, and you can look up their address in the ham call sign or the QRZ or any of the other places that they advertise, and enjoy it. I unfortunately will not be able to attend. I've got grandpa duties for 3 athletic events for youngins, so y'all enjoy and let me know how it goes. N6HKH, N5WD.
Well, I got to tell you, grandpa activities are have a priority over everything. There's nothing like having a grandkid come up and give you a hug to make your day, if it was bad, better, and if it was good, spectacular. So, one more time, who's sponsoring this? For some reason, I was listening for like an official Hamvention type name, and you said something else. So, one more time, the name of the group, and if there's a website, maybe you can post it on the shout box if you know it. Anyway, N5WD, back to you again.
Yeah, it's Main Trading Company. MTCradio.com is the address for the website, and they are in, I believe it's Tyler, Texas. Let me look up here. Anyway, MTCradio.com is the web address, and they will have something on their website about the event that's coming up. And I'm sorry, it's in Paris, Texas, up in Northeast Texas instead of Tyler. So Paris, Texas, in case anybody is available.
Well, you never know. Yeah, it sounds like fun. Thanks for sharing with us. All right, anything else before we continue on? People that want to key up during commercial break, or we're trying to grab the news on something that we all need to know about that might be charitably categorized as an announcement or something of interest we should keep our eyes out for, please key up. All right, this seems to be the end of that. In listening a bit, something that it doesn't make sense to do this because it sounds like we're going after negative stuff, but You know, we haven't had reports of problems or breakdowns or difficulties requiring technical service or someone ordering up a bunch of tools and parts from Alibaba or wherever in Tokyo to repair them. And as these new D-Star and DMR radios come out, it's difficult to believe that they've all worked perfectly during the warranty period and haven't exhibited or users haven't experienced any malfunctions. Not just, I don't like the way the audio sounds, but, where the radio starts smoking out the portals or, the antenna melts or the thing just blows up. And since some of these radios now have had some user time and field experience, I thought I'd ask if stations would care to report about problems they've had with some of the more popular radios that are out there, be it D-Star or DMR, and let us know what to look out for, to be aware of, or if it's, if it's a sinking ship on a particular item, well, I mean, that's good for all of us to know, but if it's a one-time thing and there might be something to keep in the back of your mind when making decisions about radios, that's just as important. So if you'd like to report a difficulty you had, we'll take you now. Please, Kia.
KC58.
KC5ALH. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Okay, Mike, good evening, and hello to everyone on the Roundtable Net tonight. KC5ALH, Paul, Big Spring, Texas. And just wanted to report something that we've noticed down this direction. There's a couple of our guys here in Big Spring that's a member of the club that have ICOM 5100s, and after getting the latest firmware upgrade, that means that they downloaded the firmware update from the ICOM website, used the cable, and flashed the firmware on that originally came on their radio out of the box and updated it to what is published on the ICOM website. After doing so, then so far 2 of our guys have developed a new problem that was not there before, and it has something to do with operating in the dual band mode and having both of the VFOs on the same band. So in other words, both of them on 2 meter or both of them on 440. Something about that when one person keys up on one of the 2 VFOs and the radio receives their signal, it mutes the audio from the other. So if you have a VFO A on a 2 meter frequency, VFO B on a 2 meter frequency, and someone keys up on A, but you were focused on B, all of a sudden the audio comes out of A, but you no longer hear the audio from B, but it does still continue to receive. Signal strength meter goes across the screen, but you don't hear the audio to the speaker. You can move the focus to the B, then you will hear the B, but you will no longer hear the A if someone keys up on the B. And it's just a really crazy deal. And a workaround on it. I timed out my own radio on this end. It's set for 2 minutes. What they're having to do to work around that is if they're focused on A because someone came through on A and the audio is passing on A, but then they notice it's muted on B, they have to put the focus of the radio on B and then quick key the mic, and that will open up the audio back on B again. But then if someone keys up on A, it may focus back to A and then mute the audio on B. It's a really Mickey Mouse thing. It's just, and we do not know what is doing that. And one guy has his radio sent into ICOM because there was no way to flash the firmware back, and no solution for this problem. ICOM has had his radio so far for 90 days, and no response back on what is the problem yet. We've had 2 people on this end here that has experienced such of a thing after updating the firmware on 5100.
Back over to you, Mike, KC5ALH. "90 days at ICOM Tech Service? Unbelievable. I talked to the station earlier today that wasn't too happy with Kenwood repairing a D74 and taking 30 days. And he was, upset about not having D-Star capability for it. Can you imagine 90 days? That's terrible. Well, so stations who wish to comment on this, either add to it or maybe there's a different solution, or if there's something that is posted on a website that might be of some help to those experiencing this problem, please help us out. Yep, now.
K6KD.
And we say hello to John, K6KD. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I probably shouldn't say anything because I don't have a 5100. And if they didn't have the problem before the firmware upgrade, and they do now, then I'd be kind of clueless. But one thing, I don't know of any mobile radios that have dual chips for D-Star processing. So I'm just thinking, if you do, if you're listening, and it doesn't matter whether they're the same band or different bands, but if there's a D-Star signal on one band coming in on one band, the other one will be muted because the radio does not have the capability of processing dual D-Star signals. So if they're not both D-Star, then obviously what I'm saying wouldn't be relevant. But I thought I'd just toss that out. Back to you, Mike.
All right, John, appreciate it. Anyone else have a comment about this particular problem? Please give now. All right, nothing seen or heard. Anybody else wish to give a report on a radio that had to be turned in for servicing, and maybe let us know what happened so we can keep our eyes and ears open for it, or if there's something brewing that, you found out that you shouldn't, take your radio and put super glue on a particular spot, which then causes the radio to malfunction. I'm just making something silly up. But anything like that might be of interest to others. That's why I'm floating this topic out tonight. Stations, please key up.
N6HKH.
KC9SIO, thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Okay, well, good evening, Mike, and everyone on the round table. I just now tried that with both my hotspot and my local D-Star repeater W9YR. And when I flipped up to W9YR, I was not hearing you through my hotspot. So I now know. So yes, I can confirm what the earlier station just said, what K6KD just said. When you flip it over to one, when you flip it over to one D-Star repeater, the other D-Star repeater cancels out. So it's muted. So, and I've never changed the firmware on the 51A Plus since I got it for my birthday 2 years ago. So I can confirm what K6KD just said.
All right, Steve, appreciate it. And I did note your question posted in the shop box about the battle that you're having, and some guidance on how to help out. And we'll ask for stations to comment on that in just a moment. So, all right, appreciate it. So anyone have any further on KC9ALH's IC5100 difficulty, or you have one of your own you'd like to tell us about, please key up now. All right, nothing seen or heard, and we've got a couple Shoutbox posts in response to this topic, or at least I would hope so. And one is from KC9SIO about the idea of putting up his own rat reflector for D-rats with either a Raspberry Pi 2 or a Raspberry Pi 3, and was looking for some guidance on how to do this. I suspect that how to set up a rat reflector is something that's probably on the internet and is available, so perhaps someone can either key up or post a reply where KC9SIO might find the information he seeks about setting up a rat reflector or a rat reflector for D-rats, or you can key up now if you like. Stations, please key up. Well, no D-rat stations or stations that like D-rats know about that have chosen to jump in, but you know, if you wish to type in perhaps a web address URL or maybe some suggestions for reference, or if you just want to, you know, verbalize in writing, if that makes sense, how to go about it, that's fine too, although it would be a difficulty to, I think you'd probably have to post about 3 or 4 times, that, you know, by chats of sorts in the Shoutbox. But anyway, for those listening later on, just be where he's looking for that information, and feel free to reply here or maybe create a thread in the current discussions folder if you so choose. And VA7CZ has a question about OpenSpot and Brandmeister, and how his OpenSpot has stopped displaying the Brandmeister talk groups in the drop-down menu in connections, and is asking if anyone has seen this, noticed it, and is it a problem with Brandmeister, or is it a problem with OpenSpot, or is there a firmware update that VA7CZ is missing? I think that's probably a question of interest to many of the OpenSpot users. If you can help him out or help all of us out to understand this, please key up. And 9KO. Hey, Cal and 9KO, thanks for keying up. Go ahead.
Hello, Mike and Annette. I did a quick post on the Shoutbox, but with VA7CZ, that issue appears to be related to firmware, which is a final firmware 127, and people were experiencing that issue. Some of the guys in Hungary are aware of the situation, so I would imagine it'll get fixed shortly. Back to you, Mike, and 9KO.
Oh, okay, well, that's great. And, of course, there's an OpenSpot, I think it's a Facebook page. Well, maybe it's a blog, I'm not sure. It would be cool if somebody were to post the OpenSpot. You know, actually, it's posted somewhere here in the Roundtable Forum, and I'm not sure where, but the OpenSpot people have been pretty good about responding to questions. Now, is 128 the latest firmware? I heard earlier on the Constellation that perhaps there's a beta firmware update that's around 128 or so. Does anybody know about that? And have they thrown it in and noticed that if the problem existed before, that it's gone, or if that had any effect at all? I mean, it's possible that everybody with an OpenSpot is just having the Brandmeister talk group drop-down menu and connections just vaporize, and They're still banging the open spot on top of their desk. Stations, please key up.
VA7C.
Hey, there he is, VA7CZ. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me clarify a little bit. I was running firmware version 1.2.6 when this started, and I had been running it for some time, and then all of a sudden this started to happen. And I didn't do a firmware update for a couple of days after that. I'm now running version 1.2.8, and the same problem still exists. And essentially the status does not show the name of the talk group, and in connectors, you don't get the drop-down menu with the list of talk groups. It almost looks like it's something Brandmeister may have changed. I may have to get a hold of Norbert on the forum there and try to find out if he's noticed it. Back to you, Mike.
Well, that sounds like a plan, and certainly it could be that it's a Brandmeister issue, and now OpenSpot's having to deal with it. And I appreciate K6KD posting the OpenSpot forum and a link to that. And apparently it is a website as opposed to Facebook page or something similar. So thank you, thank you, John. All right, anyone else with comments on the issue on the OpenSpot? And so he's got 128 up, and that didn't fix it. So very well, as Dave suggests, it could be a Brandmeister problem. We'll see if anyone else knows before we progress forward. So stations, please key up. Alrighty, nothing seen or heard, and as always, okay, and also N9KO talked about there's an OpenSpot Facebook page as well, apparently, so be sure to check both the Shark RF and then the OpenSpot. Shark RF, well, it looks forum dot, well, that's a blog, and then there's an OpenSpot Facebook page as well. It's just never in one place, is it? Those which have spectacular websites and blogs and forum boards, feel an urge to also set themselves up on social media so that, they don't miss anybody or they can snare them, but at the same time it scatters people about, and it does not make it easy. And, when you have to check on equipment at 2 or 3 different places, I don't know that that's a good idea, but I digress. All right. Any other radio reports, difficulties, blow-ups? Did you have to go to the hospital because of your radio that did something it really shouldn't have to you? We'll take one more shot at this. Stations, please key up. All right, nothing seen or heard, and we'll keep our eye on the shout box and see what comes up. Feel free to use it. Of course, it's always best to key up if you can, but that's just me. One of the things that I wanted to do is to talk about some of the assets that are available to everyone as part of the Kings of Digital system. More commonly, we describe it as a constellation of X reflectors, but it's really more than just the X reflectors. X reflectors is a good descriptor, but there's XRF and XLX, and there's more to it than just being linked on Module A across 4 of the reflectors that we have operating, including the 4K transcoder that is on XLX313. But I thought I'd bring to everybody's attention and perhaps engender some discussion, or at least some information about our 2 standalone reflectors, XLX212 and XLX357. You might ask, well, why are they standing alone? They don't get along with anybody else? They can't work with others? Are they, problematic? No, not at all. They're there, and they're not linked, at least as to module A. I mean, they're just as much of a reflector as any of the others, and each have capabilities that are unique to them. And I thought we'd describe them for you so that you can decide if they're for you or not, and maybe get some help in explaining why would anybody think to have standalone reflectors. And there really is a reason for that, and they're available for your use. So I'm going to throw it up in the air to our Kings of Digital, superstar engineers and technical support staff. Well, I can't say staff because they're completely unpaid, and wisely so, but still, who'd like to help out in just talking about these two reflectors and how to get to them, and why we would think to put reflectors by themselves, and how do people, well, there's a lot of things to talk about here. Stations, please key up.
W6KD.
And W6KD keyed up, and I'm glad you did, Bob. Help us out, and welcome to the roundtable. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mike, and everybody that's on the net. Actually, a standalone reflector is really not that unusual. Every single one of the REF reflectors is, in fact, a standalone reflector. It only has 4 modules, but it's a standalone reflector. It doesn't link to anything else. So if you've ever been on, one of the legacy REF reflectors, you've already been on something like that. And certainly they're, I think most people understand the use. We have, not necessarily growing, but a fairly diverse group of infrastructure assets, I guess we could call them, available to everybody to use. And the Constellation, of course, is 3 DXRFD X reflectors, each of which has 26 modules. They're D-Star only. And the A modules are linked together. So 555A, 310A, 002A are all linked together. And then the B through Z modules on each of those 3 reflectors is standalone. So there are a total of 72 available modules. I guess it would be 69 plus the 70th one is the 3 that are bridged together, the A modules that we're talking on right now. So there's plenty of available modules for people to go out and have conversations, to link a hotspot on. If your local your local town group wants to have a place to hang out, there's 70 reflector modules that most of which aren't being used. So pick one and use it. Let me change hands. Okay, and then connected to that also is XLX313, which is the 4K transcoding gateway. It is an XLX reflector. It can be I won't get into all the details, but you can access it on D-Star, and on the A module, it's also linked to the Constellation, just like the other 3. Or you can access it on the DMR side by using XLX13 as your master server, as your DMR master server, and then linking to Talk Group 4001 on that master. So that's the DMR side of the same module. So 4001 and the D-Star A module are bridged together through the transcoder, and then the A module is then in turn linked to the Constellation. There is also a B module on 313 that's linked to the XRS 727, I believe it is, the QuadNet guys, Will, W4WMM and company, and likewise you can get on that. You can access it on DMR again, by using 313 as your master, and talk group 4002. And then talk groups 4003 through 4006 right now are open, but they are transcodable. So if you're on XLX 313 module C on D-Star, you can talk to a DMR user that's on talk group 4003 on 313, and that goes for C, D, E, and F, which correspond to 4003, 4, 5, and 6, respectively, on the DMR side. I'm going to reset one more time. So anyway, that's the D-Star infrastructure, which is really substantial, 70 modules, and then the transcodable infrastructure, some of which is linked to the D-Star piece, and some of which is actually standalone. The C through F modules right now are standalone, but transcodable if you're on 313. And then what we're adding to the mix now is what we've done is we've taken 212 and we've disconnected it from the rest of the constellation, because now it's running XLX version 2, XLXD version 2, and so it can handle either D-Star or DMR. It does not have a transcoder, though, so DMR can't talk to D-Star, but DMR can talk to DMR, and D-Star can talk to D-Star on that machine. And we're the intent is for that machine to serve as a DMR standalone reflector, so that folks that want to be able to just, link up and have a chat, DMR to DMR. We've already got plenty of infrastructure available on the D-Star side, so this is best used for DMR. So if you want to, link up with a couple of your friends on DMR, you can set 212, XLX 212 as your master server, and pick any talk group of 4001 to 4026, and it's there for your use. And it functions, like I said at the beginning, REF reflectors on D-Star are the same thing. They're standalone. They don't link to anything. They're just out there by themselves, and people link into them and talk to each other through it, but there's no greater connectivity beyond that. So that is it in a somewhat large nutshell, but I think I've covered all the bases. Back to Net W6TD.
All right, Bob, appreciate it. So what about XLX 357? Is that different from XLX 212? Back to you.
.357 is also a standalone reflector that we operate, but it's used from time to time as a test bed when we're testing software versions and new development stuff. So it's there to be used, but it's probably not something that you want to hang your hat on persistently, because we do take it down. If I have a modification to the XLXD software to test, if we use it in conjunction with our second transcoding server to do testing and development there as well. And so if we need to do that, we'll take 357 down, rather unceremoniously. So, if you want to have a place to, as a regular meeting spot, that's probably not the best place, but it's certainly there available for use anytime that it's up.
All right, it sounds like you unkeyed just a bit before you ended. So I got it on the 357, XLX 212 is just DMR only. How is a D-Star user connecting, let's say, to 357? Is the connection process the same as connecting to any other X reflector, or is there something different that you have to worry about? Plus, let's just say that the module on 357 or any dual mode standalone X reflector, XLX reflector, and there's guys on the other mode talking on that same module. What might tell you that that's the case, and what should someone do who wishes to get to one or more other stations on a reflector that isn't going to well, as you've already described, it's standalone and it's for QSOs that you don't want to have linked all over the place and are easily put to use. They're there for the purposes you've described. Anyway, Bob, on those questions, back to you.
Yeah, that's a good question. The second generation XLX reflectors were designed with transcoding in mind, but they don't require a transcoder, so they can be used in the absence of the transcoding capability. In fact, they're capable of running 26 separate either talk groups or modules, depending on which side you're looking at. And there is no transcoding server at this point anywhere that can handle 26 modules. Typically, you're going to find a XLX reflector that does transcoding might have one. In our case, we have 6. But you're not going to find a 26-module XLX reflector that transcodes across all 26 modules, at least not right now, because the equipment is not particularly cheap. So it's relatively it's a relatively scarce resource because of the cost involved. So an XLX reflector that does not have a transcoder on it still allows users on both sides of the fence, on D-Star or on DMR, I mean. And so the way the reflector is implemented currently, those users can see each other's key-ups across the divide, but they can't hear audio. So if you're on talk group 4002, for example, on 357, and and somebody on the D-Star side on the B module is there also, and they key up, you're going to see their call sign, and you're going to, or actually you're going to see either their talk group number since you're on DMR, or if they don't have I'm sorry, not their talk group number, their DMR ID number. You're going to see either their DMR ID, or if they don't have one assigned, it'll just show up as all 8s. And but that'll tell you that there's somebody over on the other side of the reflector talking in the other mode. So that's not a good situation because you'd be stepping on each other because you can't hear each other, but you do interfere with each other. So if you go over there and do that and you see that, it's the simple fix is just choose another module and go QSY over to a different module on the reflector where that's not happening. Hopefully at some point we'll fix that. And if there's no transcoder, then there won't be any transference back across. I think it was done initially as a testing mechanism by Luke and Jean-Luc Reset. The two Luxembourg hands that wrote the XLX software, but currently it's still in there. And so, absent a transcoding server, you're still going to see a dead carrier from the other side if somebody keys up on the paired up module on the other side. So, just be aware that's a possibility. That's one of the reasons why we kind of want to keep 212 as DMR only, because that prevents that kind of conflict from happening. If everybody's using 212 only for DMR, then there shouldn't be anybody on the D-Star side to interfere with. So, back to that, W680.
Bob, appreciate it. All right, stations with further comments or questions about the standalone reflectors, please key up.
KB2FJ.
KB2FJD, welcome. Go ahead.
Yes, good evening, Net. This is KB2FJD, Rodney. I just want to ask a question. On the XLX 313, do we, that's both a D-Star and a DMR. Which module do I need to configure in my radio in order to connect on the D-Star side? I'm a little confused about that because I thought I had that configured, but doesn't seem to be working. So which module do I have to connect or have to configure on my radio for the 313?
Alrighty, W6KD, would you like to answer? If so, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll throw it out to others. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. 313 is an XLX reflector, so it can be addressed as XRF 313. It can be addressed as REF 313, or it can be addressed as DCS 313. Now, it's actually a good question because it's an XLX. If you're going to address it as an X reflector, as XRF 313, you have to have some port forwarding set up into your hotspot to make that work. The DXRFD reflectors, and that's 310, 002, and 555. I rewrote the way the internet sockets are handled, and so it does not communicate on a fixed port like the older X reflectors and the XLX reflectors do. So anyway, without taking you down that whole rabbit hole, the short answer is the easiest way to do it is to connect the 313 as DCS 313 and module A. So a linking command in a standard repeater or hotspot would be DCS 313AL. DCS 313AL, DCS 313, module A, the L is for linking, and then once you get the link to, you go to CQ, and then you use it that way on D-Star. You could also do it as REF 313AL. You just have to make sure that that's in your host file. It may or may not be, depending on whose software you're using and where the host file data comes from. So DCS 313AL is probably the quickest, most foolproof way of doing it back in that W6KD.
All right, Bob, thank you. KB2FJD, anything further?
No, thank you. Everything, you can take it back. Thank you very much. I just needed to get a clarification on how to connect on the D-Star side for XLX 313. Thank you.
Yep. I never hear a complaint from someone that addresses the XLX, the multi-protocol reflector, or dual mode reflector. Well, it's our 4K transcoding, that's the server as well. It has all kinds of names, but 313 works. DCS 313 is the best way to go, and DCS works fine if you're using software like WinDB, or if you're using a hotspot and that has an operating system image, D-Star Commander, or any other method in which you can address it as DCS. No muss, no fuss. All right, stations with questions concerning XLX 212, XLX 357, or anything you've heard thus far, beginning with W6KD and thereafter, please key up.
N7TAE.
And we say hello to Tom, N7TAE. Thanks for being with us. Go ahead.
N7T.
Mike and Annette, I just thought I'd ring in with a little experiment that I've been doing. Actually, Rodney and I have been doing it. KB2FJD, who just got on with the question. Bob said that you wouldn't need to worry about port forwarding. You may not need to worry about port forwarding if you have a modern router in your home network. Many of these modern routers will enable universal plug and play. And that's a system, I think, that was developed for the hardcore gamers out there in the world. Well, wasn't developed for them, but it was certainly used by them because these hardcore gamers have transmissions going out on all kinds of ports. And you can't expect these guys to go into their home router and forward all these ports to get their games to work. Many of these routers now have universal plug and play enabled. I just bought a Ubiquiti router on my system. I threw out the Xfinity router that they got that I'm renting from that I was renting from Xfinity, and replaced it with a cable modem of my own and a Ubiquiti router. And it's very simple to enable universal plug and play on those, and it works quite well. It will open ports for you automatically based on the software that's running, and you really don't have to fool around with port forwarding rules. So I thought I would pass that along. If you're in a situation where you've got a reasonably modern router in your home network, it might have universal plug and play enabled, or you might be able to enable it, and then you don't really have to worry about port forwarding rules. Back to you, Mike. This is N7TAE on the net.
All right, Tom, pretty interesting. I have a fairly new Netgear router here, and I noticed that if I don't download the software that runs the router, I'm shortchanged, and in there is, in fact, a way to automate it for purposes of just as you described. Now, I have not had to fiddle with the port forwarding. It just fell into place and worked. Same so as the one that was taken out, and that one was dismissed to the tech pile heap. I'm sorry, electronic waste, to be politically correct, for reasons not directly involving port forwarding and issues there, but it's by itself, it just I didn't have to fiddle with it. Although the software is pretty interesting. There's a lot of trick things you can do depending upon the model and the capabilities. It seems like there's a new router out every week from Netgear and those ilk, and probably the others. So, all right. Any comments about that? Is newer router the solution, or what do you think? Does that, though, at the same time, open yourself up to cyber attack? Stations, please key up.
W6KD.
W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing that needs to be emphasized is that the software, the image that you're using, has to be coded to actually talk to the UPnP router. It's not something that's going to universally work with all images. For example, D-Star Commander does not. I don't think Western D-Star does. I don't know. I don't know about some of the others. I think most of the new multi-mode stuff, like the MMDVM based images, Pi-Star, for example, probably do. But if you're having, if you discover that you can get into one of our X reflectors but can't get into the rest of the others, that's usually a port forwarding problem, almost always, because the third generation X reflectors, which is most of them, require they use a hard I'm tripping on my tongue here. They use a fixed port. And so they always come back to port 30,001. And so you have to have that port forwarded so that you have to have that port open so that the traffic can get through the firewall. When you use D plus or DCS in the D-Star world, you always initiate the connection to the reflector outbound. And so that opens a hole through your firewall going out, and it's never a problem. But the way D extra was written, it always comes back to that port regardless of where it comes from, and that causes a problem. The enhanced D extra that the fourth generation reflectors that we use, it doesn't require that. It actually respects the port that the traffic comes in from. So. But anyway, so yeah, if you can get into RX reflectors but not the rest of them, it's a port forwarding problem. Back in that W6 Kitty.
Sounds good. Stations, please key up. Alrighty, so while we're here, is anyone having a specific difficulty connecting to the either the linked reflectors? Well, again, remember the description, it's linked to Module A, and essentially the remainder of the reflectors in the constellation are standalone as to the modules. But is anyone experiencing any difficulties that they'd like to perhaps have addressed now? I mean, we're not going to get into how to program your radio step by step or spend an hour helping you assemble your hotspot in a different manner. But if there's a problem that has presented itself and you're seeking a resolution, we'll take you now. Please key up. All right, nothing seen or heard. Well, as one station commented a couple of days ago, well, you know, the problem I'm having, of course, if I was having it at the time that I'm talking to you, you being me, we wouldn't be talking. But nevertheless, that's what's cool about having a shout box and other means of communicating with us. Because if there is a difficulty, which, you know, we're not aware of anything that's of a problem. In fact, the 4K transcoding reflector has been working spectacularally well, and I just can't be pleased more with it. But that may not be your experience, and we're here to help because it's not supposed to be drudgery. It's supposed to be fun being here. So, all right. You know, one of the things that Bob touched upon is that our 4K transcoder has well, some open space, and that is that there are some transcoding module or channels that are essentially unused. And so of the 6 that are available, there are 2 of them, I believe, are in constant use. And then there's 4 that are essentially uncommitted to transcoding on XLX 313. And I thought it might be interesting to get some suggestions or a strategy, perhaps, of putting these unused channels into play, and in seeing what, you know, your thoughts might be. Perhaps first it might be appropriate just to have a brief discussion that is a reminder of you know, what it is we're talking about when we say we have unused channels on our 4K transcoder. What does that mean, especially for those that have yet to give that a try? And I got to tell you, if you haven't given it a try, you ought to, because you won't be able to tell that one guy's on DMR and you're on D-Star or vice versa. But nevertheless, let me see if someone can help provide just a quick background before we call for your suggestions and see what you think. Stations, please key up. Well, I'm going to pick on somebody. How about K6KD? John, you want to give a little background on what the 4K transcoder, you know, what we're talking about in the way of used and unused channels, real briefly, so we can see if anyone has put their mind to potential uses for the unused channel. So K6KD, go ahead.
Oh, okay, Mike. Let me first ask you, am I coming through okay?
I'm not hearing you well on 002. You're broken, but you're fine on 310, and it seems also as well as 555. Yeah, it could be an issue on my side, although I haven't had any other station do that. So, with that in mind, pretend like I'm the only one on 002 that's having difficulty, because we can hear you fine on the other reflectors. That's my long-winded answer. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll be kind of pretty brief, just in case. You know, we have 6 6 modules or talk groups that are capable of simultaneous transcoding. The idea we had to try to get this to on the turn the other radios down. The idea we had to try to get as much exposure was to allocate, roughly 4 of them to other groups, whether they be clubs or reflector systems that would make good use of it. The QuadNet is an excellent example because they're into V-Star, DMR routing, and that leads to some additional synergistic discussions. For example, Roy, Tom, and Will participate. So we were looking for maybe a couple more groups, ideas for a couple more groups that could link in their reflectors. So so roughly, the numbers are not hard and fast, but roughly 4 out of 6 of them would be used for other clubs or other systems, and then a couple would be available just anybody to link up anytime. Back to net, Asus Kitty.
Oh, okay, John. Thank you. So, you're suggesting that this be narrowed, the discussion be narrowed down to perhaps group use, that is, to systems that think transcoding would be of value to their system or to their user or membership group, and perhaps offering it to them. Would there be any other non-group potential use of the uncommitted transcoding channels? That is something that, and I'm not even sure what that might be at this juncture, but is there other uses that perhaps the unused channels could be put to other than just offering them to groups, or is that ultimately what the thinking is? Back to you, John. K6KD, go ahead.
Well, everything is open. The thought was that by focusing in on some groups, that would bring in a number of or a lot of members of those groups or those reflector systems or organizations or clubs that would be interested and make good use of the transcoding capability. That's not hard and fast. I think we were just kicking around, out of the 6 of them, maybe 4 of them for that purpose, plus or minus, and the rest of them for any kind of other use that they could be put to. That's it.
All right, John, thanks. Well, with that in mind, this may be just a shot in the dark, but it's worth trying. There are, many stations that have spent time learning about our transcoding server and, wanting to use it. And it is, if you take a look at the dashboard, you'll see that there's a number of stations connected and lots of use being put to what we call Constellation on Modulate and the QuadNet on B, but that doesn't mean that others may not have some thoughts about this or ideas, especially if you're studying transcoding and perhaps think that this is a great way to go, as we do. Just what's on your mind, the stations, please key up.
WB5.
Well, there's Don, WB5EKU. Welcome, and go ahead.
Mike and Nanette. My thought about it is maybe we should, offer one for emergency use purposes. Not necessarily all the time, but have one set aside so that in an emergency it could be used and offered to, any of the groups that are participating in emergencies that might need a cross-mode type of communication. That would open up the number of people that can communicate instead of just D-Star or just DMR, they could multiplex, so to speak. It's just a thought. WB5EKU.
Well, that's actually not a bad idea, and that's what we're seeking are thoughts of potential use. I know that, this is a fairly elaborate and well-constructed and, as we like to call it, a 4K transcoding scheme, master, really. But, sometimes people put their thinking caps on, and, it's worth spending a little time on. We'll see if anyone else has any contribution before we move on, but at least we wanted to get out the word that they're there, and while you're just not free to start connecting and carrying on like madmen, they're there for consideration for your use, given the constraints described by K6KD, and, it's like anything else. If you're going to put something to use, we're here to help. If it's just going to be a toy that is attached to whatever, and is there to brag about but not be used, well, that's maybe a different story. So, anything further? Stations, please, Kia.
K6JM.
Do my eyes deceive me? K6JM is with us tonight. Oh my, I was putting out the word, don't be bugging or calling for Jim because, well, he's out of state. But I'm glad you're here nevertheless. K6JM, go ahead.
Thanks, Mike. K6JM from Nashville, Tennessee. Our dog club is having its annual special show this time in Nashville, and we've had a good start to the day. Spent the whole day at an agility trial, meeting show chairman, and now tonight had a board meeting and all kinds of other silly club stuff. But back to ham radio here. I've just tuned in, but I think we're talking about the 4K transcoding, and if that's right, what I think it does is it takes what has been happening is kind of a splintering of digital voice people into groups, and this provides a way to bring us back together. So I think it's a very good move. I think people will begin to use it once they learn about it, and it allows us to easily talk across digital voice methods. Now, there's probably more to it, and I could go on and on, but that's my basic idea. Back to you, Mike, K6JM.
All right, Jim, I appreciate that, and, well, congratulations and good luck at the National Dog Show. Nashville, Tennessee, wow, that's a great city to visit. I hope it's not still waterlogged. Is there still signs of the tropical storms splashing their way through Nashville? Did you see that, or are there still people, sitting outside with dark sunglasses waiting for the solar eclipse? K6JM, go ahead.
Neither of the above. I got in just after a rain that might have been caused by the latest one that was coming up from the Gulf. But no, the weather has been beautiful here, cooler than probably normal, which the dogs love, and as far as I'm concerned, I love. But the weather's been great. What's the striking thing coming from California is everything's so green. You live in California, so you know what I mean, but, between March and November, it's not necessarily all that green in California, and everywhere here is just beautiful green lawns and big expanses of green. But no, everything's fine here. Back to you, K6JM.
All right, Jim, well, appreciate hearing from you and have you check in. All right, any further thoughts about the 4K transcoding and what we might do with the unused channels or for them? Final thoughts, please, Kia. We're doubling. Hang on.
N6HKH.
All right, I doubled with ZL1HN, which means that I get to call on ZL1HN. Brian, welcome. Go ahead.
Very good evening, Mike. I just thought I'd say howdy. I've been listening for a little bit. It's just about 5 o'clock Friday afternoon here. And I don't know if I'm too fussed on this transcoding business. I hear a lot of rubbishy signals on Reflector 1 Charlie and 30 Charlie. Which origin, I'm not sure where we're from. So I think it's in its infancy. I am on Fusion. I bought a Wires X and a FT2 handheld, and I'm not really finding it that interesting. I think D-Star's got it really together. D-Star's a very good system when you look at some of the others. Over.
Well, I can't argue with you there. Well, I guess I could argue with you as well. So I missed something. So is there some transcoding going on one Charlie? Because it sounded like you were throwing both one Charlie and transcoding under the bus. So I'm not sure, and I'm hoping that you're not having a bad time with our transcoding master server. It's not giving you a bad time if you try to connect to it. Although it sounds like maybe you haven't. But so what's happening? Just the first part didn't quite sink in, but a lot of things sometimes require 2 shots over the bow for me to get it. ZL1HN, go ahead.
Roger there, Mike. Well, digital is a strange beast. It goes really nicely. Hearing.
ZL1HN.
Okay, sorry about that. I bumped the knob, and I've now locked it so I can't jump all over the place. I've been hearing quite a lot of rubbishy data noise a bit lately. I'm not sure the origin of it, but I've never heard that sort of noise until just recent times. And just the other day, the first time in many months, I had my ZL1 Charlie Tango repeater go down. Some sort of corruption stopped the DVR PTR board working, and it required a reboot to get it back operational. So I guess I'm kind of throwing stones, but loosely, because I can't actually pinpoint what caused it, other than it's not something we've been used to hearing. Over.
W4G.
Well, I certainly hope it's not from us. I mean, I haven't had any of that kind of report originating from the constellation here, but we had W4GMI key up, and maybe he can lend some thought to this. W4GMI. Go ahead.
Well, that's why I'm here. I'm having the same issue, just sporadic R2D2. I don't know if the other gentleman's having exactly the same thing, and I was trying to blame it on not having the squelch tight enough on the repeater due that you don't have tones on D-Star, but anyway, I am trying to hunt down the same problem. W4 GMI back to net control.
Well, ZL1HN was broken, and he explained that he corrected it. Then I thought he was 100%. So, Dave, are you saying that this is what you're hearing from us, or is this D-Star in particular? And if so, what protocol? Or is there a specific reflector that is initiating this. I mean, you're not going to offend me if you identify one of our reflectors, because it's better to discuss it, track it down, and solve it than it is to just complain about it. Not that I'm worried about you complaining, but you know what I mean. W4GMI, go ahead.
Okay, this is particular 1 Charlie and 30 Charlie. I don't know if anybody's doing anything kind of hokey, like trying to cross over from System Fusion DMR and put all that together in the equation, but this has been going on for the last, I guess, about 2 months. And I took it that I need to, I'm not running squelch on the repeaters. They just, you don't hear white noise on digital with the DV repeater board version 1. You just hear clear, and then when somebody keys up, it opens it up. But anyway, I was going to go to the repeater site and maybe run the squelch on about a 1 or a 2, see if I can get away from that. But sounds like somebody else is having the same issue we're having, over. If I might say.
VL1.
Oh, sure. Brian said 118. Go right ahead.
Okay, well, it's about the last 2 months that I've been monitoring it as well. And I also run a DVR PTR version 1, and I've run a no squelch for years. I don't remember when I last run squelch. I've always just left it to the board to do the goods. So whether something has changed or whether there's some mode from some device that is causing it. As I said when I first started, I really don't know where to look to identify the target, other than it's a phenomena which is new in the last 2 months or so, where I've really noticed it. So I'm really mentioning it not to bellyache, but to point out that there is something going on, and I guess looking for others to help identify to get it back to the way it used to be. Over.
K6J.
Well, sure. I mean, that makes sense. But if it's specific reflectors that are, especially, 1 Charlie, which has a history. In fact, there's a post that I ran into where even Robin Cutshaw, because it's REF001 Charlie, has expressed that there was some issue with that reflector that, at least caught his attention, but I don't know where I saw it, and I didn't pay much attention to it. But perhaps, there's just an errant REF reflector, which would not be good. K6JM, go ahead.
Okay, well, you've narrowed it down to 1 Charlie and 30 Charlie in the last 2 months, so that's quite a bit. That's pretty specific. I cannot speak at all about 1 Charlie, but I was on Infocom, DSTARinfo.com, which is Georgia D-Star and Ed Knight, W4YIH, I think it is. And they commented that after one of the earlier hurricanes came through, they decided they better move 30 Charlie into the cloud. So they moved 30 Charlie within the last 2 months to Amazon Web Services, AWS cloud server. Now, it could be entirely unrelated. Amazon is great. Both Google, all of the cloud people are providing a pretty stable service. And as far as I know, K6KD has put the XRF reflectors in the transcode, the server part of it, on Amazon Web Services. I may be wrong on that, but I'm not putting down AWS. But that is a change that I believe happened in that time frame. Back to you. This is K6JM.
W6.
Very interesting. Well, W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, we do have 3, maybe 4 of the reflectors in the Amazon cloud. But I would point out that the more likely explanation, the thing, what REF30 Charlie or REF30 and REF001 both have in common is that they're both legacy REF reflectors that have very, very large numbers of connected stations all times of day and night. Sometimes 200 plus stations. So, it could very well be a limitation, a bandwidth limitation, or a processing speed limitation. Keep in mind that when you move a server into the cloud, you don't have, when you're on a VPS, you don't have, what's the word I'm looking for here? You don't have, I'm losing my mind. You don't have complete access to the processor, basically. It's, you have to share it, is what I'm saying. And so depending on what else is going on the virtual machine that you're sitting on, or I'm sorry, on the physical machine that your virtual machine is sitting on, it's entirely possible to have the reflector basically not keep up. And part of that is how the software is written and handles that stuff. But one of the reasons that we run the constellation distributed the way that we do is because we can handle a large number of users distributed across the multiple reflectors without swamping any particular one of them. So my guess, and it's just a guess, is that it's probably related to the large number of people that are linked to those two, to 30 Charlie and to 1 Charlie on a persistent basis. That would that very well could explain it. Could be something else too, but that's my guess anyway. Since we're on the guessing mood tonight, back to the net, W6KD.
W4G.
W4GMI, go ahead.
Okay, I kind of blamed it on due to the change of the seasons. When we have cold nights and warm days, we have a lot of band openings this time of year. Matter of fact, we're having band openings now. And I thought it may be another D-Star repeater on the same frequency getting back in from a band opening, but I'm like the other gentleman, it's been going on for about 2 months now. And I'm not noticing it on any of the X reflectors, oddly, but I'm noticing it's pretty prominent on those 2 reflectors. And I can get away from that, and I don't hear anything else going on. I'd be interested to know what the gentleman thinks that brought up the question. W4 GMI.
K6.
All right, well, fair enough. K6KD, go ahead.
Well, the other thing that could be going on is the legacy REF reflectors. I believe on a 30-minute interval, I could be wrong about that, but I believe on a 30-minute interval, experience very high overhead by transferring full flat file databases from US Trust to the reflector. And if they do that and then have limited bandwidth as well, that could well explain the issues. Back to net.
All right, appreciate it. Stations, please key up.
W4GMI.
W4GMI, go ahead.
Okay, with that, now I swapped out on one a Molencom board and the issue went away. that someone problemed it with a DV repeater board version 1. So, somebody explain that to me. Over.
Well, I can't, but we'll see if anyone can. Please key up.
K6
Oh, are you there?
ZL1HN.
All right, I've got Z01HN, although you were really broken when you announced along with your key up. Z01HN, go ahead.
Roger there, Mike. Yeah, well, there was a little bit of RTD2 as well. Here's a thought. The DVR PTR version 1 has been operational perfect for many years. And the thing that I found a little strange was that DV Megas and MM DVMs that have been working perfectly on ICOM 2820s and the 5100s and 51As suddenly required level adjustments with the introduction of the ICOM 4100 and the ICOM 512 Plus. Now, as I said at the beginning, I don't know what's causing it. That's why I raised it. I don't have the answers, but by raising it, I'm hoping that I'm causing others to take note of the problem, and by process of elimination, we may be able to nail it between us all. But whether it is a situation of a repeater out there that hasn't been adjusted for the new format, causing a problem, I'm not sure, but I certainly had to adjust the audio level on my DV Mega GMSK board to make it operational on those two new ICOM models. Over.
W4GMI.
Got it. W4GMI, go ahead.
Okay, I know when the 880s come out and the 5100s and all that, I had to adjust my levels due to that. So are you saying maybe, we haven't got any 4100s or the DT1 plus 2s or anything like that on our system. So do you think I need to recalibrate for that to compensate even though I'm not using it over?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I found that I had to. And what I'm saying is that if there was some repeaters out there that haven't been adjusted, that a user using one of those radios mentioned may not be quite making it into the system and causing this garbled kind of data that I've been hearing. Now that's a guess, but that's a thought. With a quick adjustment, my DV Mega GMSK was perfect, and my GMSK version 1 modem, which has been operational for nearly 10 years, 8 years or something like that, is now working fine. Over.
W4G K6J.
I have W4GMI and K6JM. W4GMI, go ahead.
Okay, so what do you think is a comparable level? I'm running, I think it's 2050 or 5020. I have to go back and look, but, what do you run your DV repeater board at now on your repeater, over?
I'm running mine at 19, and I've measured the deviation, and it's running at 1.2 kilohertz on speech. Over.
Okay, very well. I'll go back and try to make adjustments to that and see if that happens. All right, thank you, and I'll stand by for some other suggestions, W4 GMI.
Well, there's my last suggestion, Mike. This is a crude method, but essentially what I did was I adjusted. Now I'm talking now about a DV Mega GMSK shield that plugs on top of the little Uno board. I had to look at the pots and pick on the TX audio, and I, in my mind, gave the pot a clock dial, so 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And so I had a look and found when it came out of the factory setting, the pot, the slot that the screwdriver fits in was 9 o'clock. So I adjusted it to 9:30, lost the audio totally on the ICOM 51 plus 2, and then I did a count and then slowly rotated the pot. When I got to 8:30, the audio came in perfect, and I've never had to adjust it since. But at the original setting, only on the ICOM plus 2 was not passing audio. But every other radio, like 2820s, 5100, etc., all worked. Over.
Alrighty, got it. Appreciate the suggestions. Let's see what K6JM has to say. Jim, go ahead.
Okay, I think, yeah, we're learning more here as the discussion goes on. The trend from ICON was the early D-Star radios were very, very forgiving of the deviation of the transmitted signal, and each new radio is a little bit less forgiving. So if you have your homebrew system that where you've used either software or a physical potentiometer to adjust the drive level to the transmitter, the audio drive level to the transmitter, which is in effect adjusting the deviation. You might have it perfectly for a 91 AD and maybe a 92 AD, but discover that a 51A just cannot decode, chooses not to decode what it considers to be an off deviation setting of the transmitted signal. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if the 51A plus 2 and the 4100 are even more picky. So anybody with a homebrew, whether it be a repeater or their own hotspot, probably, if they want to deal with the newer radios, wants to go through the whole adjustment process again. Sounds like people are doing that, which is good. But that's kind of a not difficult solution if that's the problem. The other thing, Mike, is I just encourage. I think this is a network directed net, and I think we're having person-to-person two-way QSOs kind of slows down your ability to control. So that's up to you. You're the net control, but I thought I'd bring that up. Back to you. This is K6JM.
Jim, I have to apologize. I had to ignore your last statement, which of course was directed to me because I'm trying to deal with email and text messages to resolve this broadcastified feed loss. I apologize. What
Not a big deal. Not a big deal. I just recommend people to turn, when they're done talking, turn it back to the net control rather than turning it over to somebody else on the net. I know it slows things down a little bit, but it allows Mike to better manage the time allocation. But that's just my own thinking. But the other side of the coin is we learned a whole lot during that exchange, and I think it had to do with deviation. At least that's what I took away. Back to you, Mike, 36JM.
Oh, okay, I got it, Jim, and I agree. I mean, what normally, if it seems to be a question and answer chat that sounds like it might be worthy of us to listen without me getting in the middle of it, I'll announce that. But unless I do, I would prefer to have stations return it to me so I can make the decision, because sometimes for time purposes I have to cut it off, or if it's just being repetitive, sometimes we do that, but I try not to stomp on stations who wish to help others out. So thanks for that, Jim, and I got it. And just for those that, I mean, I guess you may or may not be listening on Broadcastify, it seems that the issue's been resolved, and but there are some stations that maybe on a localized basis are having Broadcastify report that just about everything is offline, but it's our stream and the device and equipment that's providing that stream at high speed and has been doing so for a long time. Seems to be back up and running and showing no issues. If you don't hear Broadcastify for us, I don't know what to tell you, but it seems to be cooking right along, and I just thought I'd let everybody know rather than continuing to type a bunch of stuff in the shout box. So, but if you're on Broadcastify, you may not be listening to this anyway. So, without further, let me just see if there's any further comments about this. I mean, and I'm going to throw something out. Under the legacy system, although it's possible that DFRFD has been updated to eliminate it, but there are limits to the number of concurrent user connections and the number of repeater connections allocated to reflectors, done so by Robin AA4RC. Sometimes it requires him to update the number of concurrent users. And, let's say you only had 100, sometimes he has to bump it to 200. But that may not be, the latest software that's been pushed to the reflectors by Robin. And I will certainly stand corrected. But that was an issue which, at one time at least, would have caused some of the problems that are being described on the legacy reflectors. So, now that I've had my say, anything further before we move on? I don't want to beat this up more, but if somebody wanted to quickly throw some comments in, let's take you. Please give.
W4G.
W4GMI, go ahead.
Okay, does anybody think this is revolving around the G3? I know everybody on G2, but if you're on RCDDB, it really don't matter. So, will we contribute to, I know we're contributing to maybe 2 different radios, but is there anything to throw towards G3 on this?
Oh, I don't know. That's a possibility. Stations, please key up.
01 Hotel November.
Z01E10, go ahead.
Roger there. I don't think it's G3 related because I'm running a UHF ICOM rack as a controller and a UH for 4000 transceiver, a repeater module. and that's ZL1HND. However, I have another repeater on VHF, which has been in service now for many years. That is running the IRCDB network, and that's running a DVR PTR version 1, and I've had the same sort of issues on that, so I don't think it's G3 related. Over.
All right, fair enough. Anyone else have a different opinion? G3 difficulties or no? Please key up.
KC9.
KC9SIO, go ahead.
Okay, well, good evening again, Mike. Well, all I can say is I was monitoring One Charlie Sunday night, shortly before the International D-Star Net, when One Charlie and 6 Charlie, or excuse me, 1 Charlie and 30 Charlie got linked up together. I was monitoring that night when that happened. Now, this also happened, I think the previous Friday the previous Sunday or the Sunday before that, I don't remember which, when 1 Charlie and 6 Alpha got linked up together. So that has been happening quite a bit, and I'm not sure what has caused it. So I do know Robin is working on figuring it out, KC9SIO.
Yeah, see, do you know what Yahoo group that was posted in? Because I remember reading something about Robin working on some issue with 1 Charlie, and I've been looking for it and can't find it. Do you know what group that was in? Do you know which Yahoo group was that this was talked about? KC9SIO. Man, let me slap my tongue around first. KC9SIO, go ahead.
No, Mike, I don't. I haven't touched Yahoo since my email got hacked twice, a few years ago. I haven't touched Yahoo since, so I wouldn't know which Yahoo group that was in.
Yeah, boy, it's terrible when you get older. I mean, it's possible I could have seen it and deleted it, and it's gone now, but I was trying to see if I couldn't find that post and read directly from the horse's mouth what, the Robin was going to work on, but I just can't find it for someone. Here it is. I just found it. It's on the D-Star Gateway Yahoo group from October 8th, and it's the thread D plus spinning CPU. And Robin wrote that someone is testing very high loads with their software pointing to REF001, and he's working on figuring out who it is so they can be blocked. Well, that's one approach. And there's another similar remark about some other difficulty with 001 that Robin also penned. So, well, I don't know. Maybe the answer is to not go there for a while. I know it's popular. There's a lot of stations, and I know how guys are. They follow activity. All right, we're going to end this. I don't know that there's anything further that we can do on this because I think we're just guessing. So let me take a break at this point. We've been running a little bit more than 2 hours, which is great. I mean, it seems like I just sat down and started the net. Not really, but pretty close to it. So let me break now for stations who have questions of of a nature that's related to what we do here on the Thursday Night D-Star Roundtable, but isn't addressing any topic or discussion that we've had thus far. It's kind of like an open segment. You guys have heard me say this before and probably know exactly what I'm talking about. So if you have a question about D-Star, DMR, Open Digital Systems, reflectors, whatever, or if, somebody on another net was unable to get an answer and they said, no, sneak it over to this one, and you want to drag it back under the cover of darkness, that's fine as well. We'll take your question now. Please key up.
N7TAE.
N7TAE. Go ahead.
Hey, Mike, can I talk about this UPnP, the Universal Plug and Play, a little bit more?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Well, when you guys were beginning to talk about 1 Charlie and 30 Charlie, I decided to try an experiment. So I unplugged my Raspberry Pi with a Pi Star image on it, and I plugged in my BeagleBone Black with my software that is based on the original KI4 KLX Scott Lawson software. And it's working fine as well. I went over onto QuadNet and made sure I could do some routing, and it's working. That uses port 40,000. And I'm talking to you now on it right now, and I'm linked up to XREF, what am I linked to? 310 Alpha, I believe. And it seems there's one of two possibilities, I guess. The first possibility is I don't know what I'm doing when I configure my EdgeX Ubiquiti router, but I think I know what I'm doing. Or Universal Plug and Play is a little bit more sophisticated than we give it credit for. So it seems like it's working fine. I don't have any ports forwarded. I'm able to do things in the high-end ports successfully, and I'm using some very old software. Back to you, Mike. This is N7TAE, listening intently.
W.
All right, and looks like W6KD wants to give you something to listen to. W6KD, go ahead.
Hey, Tom, yeah, I was going to mention that if you're linking to 310, port forwarding is not required. It's a 4th generation DXRFD reflector, so it doesn't matter whether or not you have port forwarding set up, because 310 will come back to your hotspot on whatever port it went out on. So that's not a good measure of success. You need to go to one of the 3rd generation X reflectors like well, I guess you could go to XRF 727. That's 3rd generation. You know, anything but 002, 310, or 555, because those will work regardless of whether there's port forwarding or not. So it's not really a good check of whether or not that's working or not. But I do have to scratch my head though, because unless the UPnP router still has to have something has to tell it to route traffic to a particular device behind the firewall. So the magic only goes so far. So I'm wondering what's going on. It might be that anyway, 310 is not a good test case. Back to the W6KD.
Alrighty, anyone else? Please key up. Alright, nothing seen or heard. Well, N7TAE may have stumbled upon something that nobody's thought about, and stations may have to check that out. And I'm sure there's plenty of stations with new routers. I'm getting ads from Staples and other electronic supply stores, Best Buy and whatnot, at least out here on the West, well, Staples is worldwide, telling me, oh, the router that you bought just 4 months ago is too old. You got to get a new one, and it could very well be just as you described. Anything further in 7TAE? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask, is 313 alpha, is that a good test case, would that prove it? I mean, I did go over and do some routing, which I don't think we have any sophisticated stuff like that over on the QuadNet side for that. So would 313 alpha be any better of a test?
I don't think so, because the multi-protocol reflectors are all running on the same platform. The difference being the 313 has the 4K transcoding master server on it, and as the W6KD expressed before, if you want to, I guess press a routing issue to see if your router would resolve it. I mean, that's not a routing, port forwarding issue, I meant to say. You'd have to try to address 313 or one of the other XLX reflectors as XRF or perhaps REF. DCS is going to fly right through. But let me just see if I have that right, or maybe there's a better way to, kind of make your router have to deal with port forwarding. W6KD, what do you think? Go ahead.
Okay, well, 313 is an XLX reflector, so if you link up to 313 as an XRF using DXtra, you have to have port forwarding enabled to make it work. So that would be a good test case. Any connection using D+ or DCS. And as far as I know, the other stuff may not be a good test case either. The whole point, I guess, is that most connections start with your hotspot making an outbound connection to somewhere. For example, IRC-DDB, the QuadNet servers, for example, that's an outbound connection from the hotspot to the server. With a D+ connection, which would be a standard REF connection or REF reflector, or a D+ connection to an X reflector too. If you do that, the same thing. The outbound, the hotspot, it makes a handshake request outbound first, and the SPI firewall will open up a port as a result of the outbound traffic coming out of the hotspot. So the only one that's problematic that I know of, at least on the D-Star hotspot side, is the original DXtra protocol, which has a fixed port 30,001 that it listens on, and so 30,001 has to be forwarded to the device through the firewall to make that work. And so if you go to an older X reflector, or if you connect to any XLX reflector as an X reflector, then that should be a good test. And when I say as an X reflector, I mean using the DXtra protocol. If you have the X reflector in the D+ host file in your hotspot, it's not actually connecting using DXtra, it's connecting using D+. So, in fact, that's how we get around that problem with D-Star Commander, is it migrates all of the DXtra host file entries over onto the D+ side, and so even though you're connecting to an X reflector, you're connecting to it using D+, which is not constrained or hampered by port forwarding. So hopefully that all makes sense. It's just one narrow case, DXtra to anyway, D extra to either an older X reflector or any XLX reflector should be a good test.
All right, got it, Bob, with a slight break. So with that in mind, N7TAE, any further?
Okay, I am using D extra right now, talking on 310 alpha, XRF 310 alpha. So it seems to be working, right? You guys are listening to me, and I'm hearing you.
Comment.
W6.
W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not a good test, Tom, because 310 is one of the new fourth generation X reflectors. 002, 310, and 555 all work regardless of port forwarding, because I recoded the socket handler to get around that problem. But any other X reflector but those three is a test case.
N7TAE, go ahead.
Okay, let me unlink and try 313 alpha, and I'll maybe I won't come back.
Oh, yes, you will. You just go back to where you were before and key up and give us a report. We're all dying to find out if it works or doesn't, and to further your hypothesis. So, appreciate it, though. Just we paused long enough for you to key up. All right, so we're in an open question segment, open topic segment. Anyone with questions does not have to be related to what you've heard tonight, but could be. Stations, please key up.
W4G.
W4GMI, go ahead.
Well, you guys hate to see me come because I'm full of questions, but anyway. We have a guy that shows up on our Afternet every Tuesday night on the Alabama D-Star net, and I guess he's the author of the QuadNet out of Huntsville. And I cannot get a biased answer. I'm curious to know, what does the QuadNet have to offer me that I can't get out of the XLX reflectors? Quite happy working XLX and have a good time at it, but they're pushing these new QuadNet. What does it have to offer I can't get out of the XLX, or what does it offer? Over.
N7.
Well, I was just about to say that the person best suited to answer your question, although we went over this a couple of weeks in a row, but no problem in because it is an open session, providing an answer. And I just was going to say, well, Tom ran off, but there he is. N7TAE. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for that question. That's a very good question. And what you should do is go to openquad.net and read the fact there. I've installed a brand new fact. The bottom line is the reason that you would want to use OpenQuad, or QuadNet as we call it, is for routing. If you don't want to do routing, if all you want to do is linking, you don't need to go to rr.openquad.net. You don't even need IRC-DDD. It's for routing, period. Like I say, if you're just doing linking, you don't need an IRC-DDD client unless you just want the thrill of seeing your call sign come across our last heard page. But there's really no reason to go there if you don't want to play around and experiment with routing.
W4.
Yes, you and Will have pointed out it's routing versus linking. W4GMI, go ahead.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'd love to go read that, but I am blind, so I can't read that. So anyway, I guess I got the answer I was looking for, but I'm running RCDDB on our repeaters, and I still don't understand what the QuadNet does for me. Why, if I'm running QuadNet, why don't I need RCDDB? Because there's a place on the software, the RCDDB, that you can do QuadNet on. So anyway, I'm still confused. W4, Gemma.
N7.
Well, I mean, there's actually on the Roundtable Forum board a discussion that was posted by N7TAE, and I think Will also put something there. I'm going to have to go back through it to find it. Well, N7TAE keyed up. Let's see what he's got for you. Because, I mean, it's an important distinction, and there is a purpose to it. It's not like just QuadNet and StarNet are just there as some, tired old legacy system. They approach what we do in a different manner. And so in 7TAE, go ahead.
You can link up to 757 Charlie or the 4K transcoder on channel B, 313B. That's linked to 757 Charlie. 750X reflector 757 Charlie is our main QuadNet reflector. We still do linking there too. We just like to throw in the little spice of routing as well. But you can come over and talk to us, and we'll be happy to take as much time as you want to answer all your questions. There's usually somebody there that can talk to you about it, and we'll be happy to talk to you.
W4GMI.
Well, there you go. W4GMI, go ahead.
Okay, I'm familiar with 757 Charlie. I did try to link up to it the other day, and it wouldn't let me link. But am I to understand that we can step off into another dimension, such as DMR or system confusion or something like that, along with D-Star? Is that what you're trying to do over?
I'm going to let N7TAE and W4GMI go back and forth a little bit on this without my interference. N7TAE, go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Mike. I was just giving you the courtesy of controlling things carefully. Again, QuadNet, OpenQuad.net is for routing. It's a different way to communicate. There's 3 different kinds of routing. There's a call sign routing. That's probably the most infamous because it's caused the most problems historically. And there's repeater routing, which is just like linking to a repeater. There's really very little difference between repeater routing and linking to a repeater. A lot of repeaters don't allow it because they block port 40,000, and you need port 40,000 for routing. And then there's group routing, or StarNet digital group routing, that was originally started by John K6DE, and then he turned the code over to Jonathan, and Jonathan now packages this in his IRC-DDB gateway. You can actually start your own routing server if you want. It's very easy to do, and it works fine. It's just a different way to connect people together on the D-Star network. It has its pluses, and it has some minuses too, and we'll be happy to discuss that with you. But mostly we really enjoy doing it over there. It's quite easy to do. You can You can subscribe to several different StarNet groups, for example, and it's flavored more like the way DMR works, and so it's just a different way to do things, and it's a powerful tool that everybody should experience. If you think you like D-Star, you should come over and try it sometime and see what you think about it. Back to you, Mike. Or maybe I'll just pass it back to the questioner and see if he has any more, and we'll go from there.
Okay, the question I asked you was, if I get on this QuadNet, am I able to talk over to DMR side as well as the D-Star or System Fusion? That was my question, over.
We have a link between XRF 757 Charlie and the B channel of the 4K translating server that the Kings of Digital own. So yes, you could talk to DMR people, but they would have to be tuned in to that B channel as well. So there is a gateway there, and we're constantly linked up to it. So what's interesting is you can be on a route to a StarNet server that's linked to 757 Charlie, that's linked to 313 Beta, that's linked to any DMR station that's also hooked up to 313. So you can get linking, routing, and DMR all in the same conversation. It's kind of interesting.
Okay, will it transpose the call sign from D-Star over to DMR and System Confusion?
System Confusion, I assume you mean System Fusion is not in the mix here yet. Not yet, as far as I know. I think call signs go through fine. But you'd have to, that'd probably be a better question for the Kings of Digital, but I think all that stuff works pretty well.
Okay, I thank you, sir, for answering my questions. Thank you, Mike, W4GMI.
All right, thanks to you and N7TAE for talking about it, and I also encourage those, whether you have difficulty with sight or for whatever reason don't care to take a look at it online, to go over there and chat with the guys. It's a friendly group, and as Tom said, you can yell at them all you want, and they're still going to be nice about it. Well, don't be that way, you know what I'm saying. All right, real good. All right, so any other questions? Maybe there's been some stations that have been standing by waiting to get their question brought to the round table, and we certainly don't want to let that opportunity pass us by. So stations, please, yeah.
ZL2B.
And we say hello to ZL2DRM. Go ahead.
Yeah, g'day, Mike. David here. My question is probably a really basic thing that everybody understands for you guys. The different types of reflector, REF, XLS, XLX, and whatever, what do the different ones do that are different from the other? What's the how do they differ from each other? That's really what I'm looking to understand. If anyone can give a plotted summary of how they differ one from the other, that would be very much appreciated. Over.
Alrighty, let's see if we can get a station to give us the Reader's Digest version. That would be appropriate stations. Please key up.
K6K.
K6KD, sitting there in the corner being quiet for a while. Thanks for keying up. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll do the Better Than a Reader's Digest. I'll just point to a paper that I wrote that is in current discussions. It's not that long. It's 5.5 pages. It's called, the thread's called Paper Describing XLX, XRF, and also use of DMR gateway thrown in. And it describes the background very briefly of XRF compared to XLX and what the strengths are. Anyway, back to that.
Okay, well, and that's a good starting point, but is anyone able to verbalize just a basic difference between we don't have to get into the weeds on this and really shouldn't, because we'll still be working on it way past everybody's bedtime, but just a real quick, here's REF, XRF, DCS, XLX, etc., just real quickly for ZL2 DRM, and anyone else who might also have a similar question would be appreciated. Stations, please key up.
W6K.
W6KD. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll start out by saying that, you'll get a much more complete understanding by reading John's paper, or I've got one that's a little bit dated called Reflections on Reflectors that's on my support forum for D-Star Commander. It doesn't cover transcoding, the later breaking developments, but anyway, the short oversimplified version is the REF reflectors. The original, legacy reflectors use D+ as their only protocol, and they are standalone. They don't link to anything else. So, they don't link to any other reflector. So they are you can think of them as a conference hub that people connect gateways to, whether those be hotspots or repeaters or dongle applications, and they serve as a central hub, and they don't link elsewhere to other reflectors. The X reflectors came along next, and those reflectors use both the D+ and the D extra protocol. D extra is the native protocol, but they will also function with D+. And there are several different flavors of those. The third generation, which is most of them, is a 4-module reflector, just like the REF reflectors, and they can be linked together on a limited basis. And then the 4th generation X reflectors can have as many as 26 modules, and they can be much more intricately interlinked into wider. They can use more modules. They can cross-link. I won't get into all the details. The DCS reflectors were a European creation, and they are also standalone reflectors that have as many as 26 modules, and they are going out in favor of the XLX reflectors, which are the newest on the scene. They are tri-protocol reflectors. They will do D+, D extra, and DCS protocol. And they have up to 26 modules. They are cross-linked. They can link to each other in a different way from the X reflectors, but you do have clusters of linked XLX reflectors, and they are the only reflectors right now that actually do the transcoding between D-Star and DMR. They are also capable of doing DMR to DMR and D-Star to D-Star. So that's one over the world in 3 minutes, W6KD.
And a fine flight that was, Bob. I appreciate it. All right, so quickly, ZL2 DRM, anything further? Go ahead.
Yeah, ZL2DRM here. Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Thank you very much for that summary. That's a nice, clear, concise summary for the difference between them all. Essentially, it's the difference between being standalone and the degree to which they can be made to connect to other reflectors or gateways. So that was a really nice, clear summary. And the protocols. Thanks for that very much. It's one of the things that I'm needing to investigate before too long, and so that was very much appreciated. Cheers.
Well, you're quite welcome. The written resources are, good places as well to get down to the nitty gritty, and I can tell you that if you were to Google some of the keywords associated with D-Star and digital reflectors, that you can find white papers and technical dissertations almost that will take you deep into the weeds if you choose to go that far. So appreciate you being with us. All right, I think there's another station that keyed up, but I didn't catch it, and that is so unusual for me. But I heard the key up, didn't see the call sign, and I just wanted to see if there's anyone else who wished to participate in this segment that we call Open Question, Open Topic. Stations, please key up. Probably nothing seen or heard. Something just came to mind, and Brian Zeta 1HN, for example, said he was coming in on Fusion, and, occasionally we'll get a station claiming they're using a Fusion radio, which is, perfectly acceptable and possible with OpenSpot and other gateway devices that are multi-mode and accept inputs. Well, that is that they can communicate with DMR, Fusion, and other protocols, and then when connected appropriately, can appear elsewhere. The question that has occasionally come up during the week on the Constellation is, should Fusion be transcoded? That is that, in addition to DMR, which is, and D-Star, which is the current modes that are transcoded on the 4K transcoders, I'm wondering if anyone has any thoughts about the utility of offering transcoding to Fusion users, and if so, is that worth the time and effort, and how would that help Fusion, given that there's probably 5,000 individual rooms out there with maybe one or two stations in them at any given time, and it seems that they gather together as opposed to using Fusion to reach other digital modes. Just an observation, doesn't mean that that's the way it is. But I thought I'd ask if anyone has any thoughts or observations about the utility or the usability, that is, would people use it, if Fusion was transcoded, or more specifically added to the 4K transcoding. I'm not saying that it will be. I just thought I'd get a sense for it because it's a topic that you hear from time to time. Stations, please key up.
W6K.
W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, the question as to whether or not it'll be worth doing or not, I think is that answer is yet to be determined. There are a large number of people out there with Fusion radios. Fusion radios, like D-Star radios, are on the expensive side, particularly when compared to DMR radios. You're talking, $100 for an entry-level DMR radio. You're talking realistically about 4 times that for a D-Star or a DMR radio. By the time you buy the Titera MD380 DMR radio, you get a drop-in charger, programming cable, battery pack and radio and antenna, pretty much the whole basic kit. To buy that same basic kit for a D-Star for a Fusion radio is going to probably set you back around, depending on whether or not you get it on sale or whatever. If you buy it new, it's going to be around $400. And so anyway, it might be worth doing, to bring existing Fusion folks, over into a common forum, like for example here on the roundtable now, with the 4K transcoder running on 313, we now have DMR and D-Star people, and we're starting to see a pickup in the number of DMR folks coming over to look and see what's going on. The same thing perhaps with Fusion. The common philosophy, DMR and Fusion use the same vocoder, but there are differences in the way the signals are processed prior to going into the encoder and after being taken out of the decoder, that make levels vastly different between DMR and Fusion. Anybody who's used an open spot, for example, to connect up to connect their DMR radio to a YSF reflector, which is a Fusion reflector, the Fusion radios are anemic in their audio, and the DMR radios are splattering all over the place. And so it's not really as simple as just transplanting the Ambi Plus 2 payload into a different carrier and letting it ride. Let me reset here. Anyway, to do it right really does require a transcoding process where you decode the signal and then do some signal processing on the PCM audio using readily available tools, and then you have to re-encode it and send it back out, which is exactly what we do when we transcode between D-Star and DMR and vice versa. So to do it right is a more difficult problem than a lot of people are giving it credit for. Can you make it work? Yes, you can hear the other guy. You can take a DMR Ambi payload and move it over and just essentially just encapsulate it in a Fusion data structure and send it on, but the audio will sound terrible. It's not really truly straight across compatible. It will work, but it will not work well. So to do it properly is going to take a lot more work than I think a lot of folks believe. So the question really is it worth doing that work? And I don't know. I don't know if it is or not. I haven't heard a lot of interest expressed from Fusion users on doing something like that. So time will tell, I guess. Back to net, W6K.
Bob, thanks for that. Stations with comments, please key up. All right, nothing seen or heard. It seems to me, at least based on listening, I do not have a Fusion radio, that stations which hang out here, and here being D-Star generally, or in open source digital modes, more specifically DMR, but the D-Star crowd, let's just leave it there because that's really the source of this information I'm about to relate. When they talk about their next radio, their next move, where is it going to be? It's DMR and not Fusion. So if you have a D-Star radio and it's time to get something else, and especially if you agree with some of the thinking that we have here on the Kings of Digital system, that as time goes on, the less expensive but high quality radios are going to drive the day, which at present is DMR. That is certainly not the case with Fusion, especially given that Yaesu is now has a new Fusion 2.0 or 3.0 platform, for which some of its older radios now are going to be obsoleted with some of the more recent radios being upgradable, they claim, by firmware. But anyway, the long and the short of it is that you don't hear stations reaching for fusion. You hear stations reaching for a DMR radio. And that may be driving a lot of it. Like anything else, if there's interest and it's going to be used, well, it's worth taking a look at. On the other hand, doing it just for the sake of doing it, with it being whatever, but in this particular case, offering fusion transcoding on a high quality basis, not just some, putting together speaker boxes or some sort of, wacky audio bridge, but, making it same so as D-Star and DMR. I don't know if the demands are yet, but that's why I asked, and we'll find out. Anyway, well, we're now approaching, let's see, I'm going to count my fingers because it's too late for me to count in my mind. 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, we're coming up on 3 hours. So let me see if there's anything that you guys want to bring to the round table, something that we didn't discuss, a question we didn't seem to answer even though we were attempting to do so, or anything final for tonight's round table before we think about bringing it to a close. So let me put out a general call for stations. Please, Kia. Alrighty, nothing seen or heard. Tonight was one of those nights where the topics carried on fairly well, had some interest. I greatly appreciate it. Had more stations keying up. At the beginning, it was pretty slow, a lot of cricketing, heard in the background, but that's all right. Once we got cranking, then the stations were helping us out, and I have topics that, my judgment is if we get into them now, we're going to be talking here far later than we probably should. And, being mindful of the stations that are on the East Coast and parts of the world that try to listen to us live or, way past their bedtime. And for many, tomorrow's a work day, although for others, today's Friday and tomorrow's not, and so it doesn't matter to them. But nevertheless, this is probably a great time to bring it to a close. So just because there are those that like to wait until the last minute, they sit on their hands. Not that that's bad, although I worry about circulation and blood being cut off. But nevertheless, if you wait to the end of the round table before keying up with something worthy of our attention, you better do it now, because I'm going to close this down absent demand. Stations, please, yeah. Well, that tells me a lot, and so I think we're going to bring this edition of the Thursday Night D-Star Roundtable to a close, and I appreciate every station that keyed up, because, as you know, without your participation, there would not be a roundtable, and I greatly appreciate those stations that keyed up in whatever manner to help move this along. So, that we've got a podcast that'll be probably ready to roll tomorrow morning. Certainly no later than noon on Friday, given that right now it's 21:54 hours Pacific daylight time here Thursday. So look for that. The shout box is a great place to post things that you'd like to have talked. Topics you like to have discussed, maybe questions you like to have answered, things that are directed to me. But don't do it until we've cleaned out the roundtable from tonight. And then you have a clean slate. It'll be there through to next Thursday. Nothing will be lost. You can certainly go through the roundtable forum board, and it's best if you register. It's no big to do. Just use your call sign. It doesn't take but a few moments. And that way you can go throughout the forum board, take a look at all the posts and the folders and the categories and reply to them, and as well as, the next time you take a look at it, if you're a signed in user, it'll show you the list of the posts that are recent that may be of interest to you, and there's a whole bunch of other features. And I guarantee you that nobody's going to bug you, send you trashy emails. The only thing you got to do is prove you're not a computer, but most of you guys go through that fairly regularly when logging in or signing into other websites, especially new ones. This is no different. And you can also send me an email, if you like, with suggestions and topics and things that may interest you that I have not seemed to show any interest in myself, but that doesn't mean anything because, you know, sometimes I can't be interested till I know what's of interest to you. And I usually work real hard to make myself interested. Anyway, it's n6hkh@me.com. Now, please don't ignore the upper part of the Roundtable Forum board because there you have an opportunity to sign up for our newsletter, which we, claim to be sending out at least on a monthly basis. It's just about ready to be released, the first one, and then hopefully we're going to be on track for a regular one. Plus, there's a weekly email just letting you know, reminding you of the net that we're having here right now and some of the topics, and there's sometimes interesting stuff, sometimes funny stuff. Again, it'll just between the newsletter and the flyers, just between us and you. And we also have a Twitter feed that if you'd like to follow, there's a link there on the Roundtable Forum board if you're so inclined. Anyway, I'm out of air, out of gas, and ready to call it quits. I can't think of anything else to say, and so I'm not going to. And, I'm sorry. I did want to remind everyone that Saturdays there's another net that's been running for quite some time here on the constellation of X-Reflectors. That is the D-Star Users Group. Meets Saturdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 000 UTC, as I can best determine. And net control is Jeff, VE6DV. Now, we are going to work as hard as we can to get other nets going. And I don't want to belabor the conclusion of the roundtable, but your suggestions as to nets that you sincerely would be interested in participating in. You don't have to be net control. We'll deal with that. We'll find someone, that's for sure. But let me know, because we're here to please. Anyway, without further ado, everybody have a great weekend. And we appreciate you being here with us tonight. And the constellation of X-Reflectors is open for your use. Please visit, even if you have a home reflector or a system that you like to hang out on, and come by and say hi, and, feel free to give it a try. And doggone it, if you haven't checked out 4K transcoding, you're missing out. N6HKH. Good night, everybody.